somebody needs to put a quarter in the jukebox. You have? Excellent. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. You are listening to The Professional Noticer. Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Andrews. Hey, thank you for making me a part of your week. My purpose here today and with every show we do is to play the part of a best friend or a coach. I want to help you live the life of your wildest dreams by giving you access to the greatest mentors the world has to offer today. Surely by now you're a member in good standing of wisdomharbor.com. For less than $3 a month, you have access to original content only found on wisdomharbor.com that'll have a positive effect on your family. That includes your little kids, teenagers, and your adult children. Schools are going crazy with wisdomharbor.com. Dave Ramsey says it's great for your business. We utilize video, audio, and the written word. Content's delivered in small bites by Grammy winners, CEOs, comedians, master chefs, best-selling authors, and Hall of Fame speakers. There are even guitar lessons from an award-winning songwriter. Check it out today and join your friends and neighbors who are already a part of wisdomharbor.com. Observations and answers, that's what we do here on The Professional Noticer. And we love it when somebody comes to the table with both. When somebody has observations and answers, it's just like, that's just like the grand prize. And that's what we have today on The Professional Noticer. We have a guest who I have known of longer than I have known. But I have known him a long time. And I glanced at his bio because I thought, I don't need to read his bio. I know Larry. But I glanced at it, and the first line that came to my eyes, I thought, yep, that's Larry. Developed a love affair with the English language. That describes our guest. He has a voice that is beyond belief. And when you couple that with his work with words, you can see why he has had songs recorded by Elvis, Glenn Campbell, Barbra Streisand, Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Charlie Rich, Barry Gibb, Johnny Mathis, Dottie West, and a whole host of them. Please welcome Janice Gatlin's husband, Larry.
That is really the best part of my life, is being Janice Gatlin's husband.
How are you doing, buddy?
Thank you, Brother Andy. I appreciate that. I am honored and humbled by your kind introduction. Those two Gatlin boys I sing with every now and then. I'm grateful to God that they let me be their lead singer and make some records with those Gatlin brothers too. I've led a very charmed life, as Macbeth said. Of course, it didn't work out too well for him because Macduff cut his head off about 2 pages later. But I wrote a song for part of a thing I'm calling Of Borders, Rivers, and Time. It's kind of an anthology of my life and the places I've been, the people I've met, and the great experiences. It says, the first time I fell in love with a little girl named Jane. She had a brother named Dick and a dog named Spot and a sister named Sally and a cat named Puff and a teddy bear named Tim. And since I met them, my life's never been the same. When they broke out those little first books in the second grade of Fun with Dick and Jane, the words, and I've never been I don't read to myself. When I take a book, at night when I go to sleep, I'm rereading. I've got on my Ernest Hemingway cap and my bush jacket. I'm rereading A Movable Feast by Ernest Hemingway. I read it out loud.
Do you?
Even lying in my bed in my PJs, I read it out loud. I just love to hear the sound of the words. I just really do. And when I was a kid, if they made me read to myself, I didn't get that.
Larry, have you ever done it? Have you ever done an audiobook? Have you ever done an audiobook?
Well, I did one for a friend of mine, a little Cowboy Little and Cowboy Small, buddy of mine, James Roden over in Atlanta. And years ago, I did one for somebody. I think it was like about race cars, like, NASCAR or something.
Right.
But I never really have done that. I, as I told you a little bit earlier, I'm very, very grateful again and humbled. The folks out at the University of Texas, the Permian Basin, out in Odessa. I told them, met the lady, Dr. Sandra Woodley, who is the president there, through another friend of ours from Odessa, Lissa Wagner Noel. Lissa Noel Wagner, she married Cy Wagner. That I want to give back. You remember in The Electric Horseman when Robert Redford said the reason he turned that big old horse loose? He said, I want this horse to pass down some of the genes to these mares, those wild horses out in the desert. Well, I'm just trying to pass along a few of the genes and the DNA that Johnny Cash and Chris and Willie and Mickey Newberry and Roger Miller and Dottie West and those people upon whose shoulders I stand, pass down some of that. I don't know if it's knowledge. It is. But the experiences.
Yeah.
And just little things like, if you want to write, read. If you want to write, read.
I had a conversation with a guy yesterday who was talking to me about writing, and he wanted to write, and he said, what is your best recommendation? What should I do? And I said, read. Yeah, you got to read to be able to write.
You told him the exact. I'll give you a short, a little 2-minute story if you got to.
Yeah.
In 1965, I was a senior in Miss Ann Louise Jones' English class at Odessa High School in Odessa, Texas. She assigned me a special extra credit book report on The Grapes of Wrath by John Steinbeck. Guess what? I didn't need an extra credit book report. I was going to make A. I was her favorite student, and I made A+ on everything. She wanted me to do it. She said, I want you to do this. That was in 1965. I made an A. 13 years later, 1978, I'm sitting in a traffic jam at the Hollywood Bowl. You've been there, right in front on Highland, right there, going to Burbank. I'm sitting there in that traffic jam, stuck in front of the Hollywood Bowl. Right in front of me is a 1958 Mercury station wagon, 20-year-old station wagon, Mercury station wagon with Oklahoma license plates. They got kids hanging out the window, pots and pans. I'm not sure there was a mattress tied on top, but for my purposes, there was. And I said to myself out loud, I said, these poor Okies are coming to California to try to get rich and famous. They look like the Jode family from Grapes of Wrath. I said all this out loud. Then I said out loud, these Okies are going to find out that all the gold in California is in a bank in the middle of Beverly Hills in somebody else's name.
Wow.
I took the pen, took the Hertz rent-a-car slip, wrote it down, all the gold in California. The traffic jam broke up, the light changed. I went over to Burbank, to Warner Brothers Records to talk to Mo Austin about a record deal. He was very nice. After the meeting, I came out, got in my Hertz car. It was 5:07. Andy, it was 5:07. I knew I had to leave by 5:15 to get to another meeting around the mountain. I sat in that car, and in 8 minutes, I wrote looking at that thing. I went home, sang it for Stephen Rudy. We recorded it. 6 months later, it was the #1 country song in the world. That would never have happened without Ann Louise Jones. Thank you, dear. I love you still. I'll see you when I do. And without John Steinbeck and without the Jode family. If you want to write, read. So last night in A Movable Feast, when Ernest Hemingway, and I've got on, like I say, his cat, he couldn't afford books. He was poor, he's broke, he was in Paris. And he went to Sylvia Beach's, that famous bookstore there on the left bank up in Montparnasse. And she had a library. She loaned him books. Wouldn't let him pay. He said, I can't pay you. If I pay you, I can't eat. Can I borrow them? She loaned books to Ernest Hemingway so he could go read. He'd probably wound up Ernest Schwartz, if he hadn't read. So that's my deal to anybody who wants to write, read. To anybody who wants to just have a better understanding of their own existence. I think you read about other people's. I'll shut up now.
No, I want to dig into something. That we've had a million conversations. We've had conversations backstage. We've had conversations in cars. We've had conversations on cruise ships. We've had conversations in living rooms, in restaurants. And I just thought of something that I've never considered about you when I was introducing you. And here's what it is. When I look at the people that have recorded the songs that you have written, I'm seeing in there Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, Barry Gibb, and these people they're considered the best songwriters on the planet. I mean, Barry Gibb wrote "Islands in the Stream" for Kenny and Dolly, and the Bee Gees stuff, and Chris Christopherson. I mean, and yet you have written songs that impacted them so much that they listened to that song, they looked at the words, and they said, "This is better than I can do. I've got to record this. I can't do anything better than this." And that's why they recorded the song. It's what an incredible tribute. Has that ever crossed your mind?
Yes, it does. And again, I think honored and humble. It is a humbling, that may not be a word people associate with me. But Ayn Rand said, ego is the fountainhead of all creativity. If you don't think I don't want the doctor to go in there if he's going to cut on my heart. I don't want him to say, well, I think we can do this. Let's open the book. I want him to say, gas him, get him ready. I'm the chest cutting this son of a gun in this town, and we're going to fix this old boy.
Right.
That's the way I want them to look at it. So with a little less demonstrative, when I sit down, see, I can't lie to that Palomino black-winged pencil. I can lie to you. I can lie to God. I can lie to Janice. I can lie to myself. I cannot lie to that pencil. So when I sit down in front of a blank a sheet of paper, the people, again, upon whose shoulders, I had the great honor of being able to present Chris with the Texas Medal of the Arts. And I told them, I said, well, I've written a little song here. All we scribblers try hard to write like the bard, William Shakespeare. None can, we all wish that we could. For whenever old Will took to parchment and quill, words never had it so good until Chris Christopherson came along. And I said, very simply, I believe he is the greatest wordsmith in the English language since William Shakespeare. And if that other Will were here, Willie Nelson, I think he'd say, Gatlin, I think you're right. So to answer your question, when those people, Mickey Newberry told me to write my own songs. I wrote every song but 2 on the 18 albums that we did. The good book says, God forbid that I glory except in the cross of Jesus Christ. I will not take the glory. I'll take the credit. That's all it means. They run the credits, and that just said who was in the movie. So my way of thinking is, and since then, we've done Christmas albums or pop albums, or but for the Gatlin brothers to sing, I think that's for me. And all honesty, Barry, the song that Barry and Roy Orbison we did together, Indian Summer. Barry and I wrote that together, and I've co-written a few songs with Bill Gaither and some other people around town. It's still my deal to sit down there with that pencil and a blank sheet of paper. But when they record your songs, it's kind of like saying, well, I love my children, but I love your children too.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a.
What 2 songs in 18 albums? What 2 songs are good enough that you recorded somebody else's songs?
Well, the people at Columbia, at Columbia Records years ago, we'd had a big success with the first album on Columbia, Straight Ahead. And I'm looking at the gold record up there. It has all the gold, some of those songs. And then some of the well-documented, some of my habits and things that I had, I'm very much like the prodigal son. Took his belongings and went and wound up eating the stuff that the pigs wouldn't eat. So the good news is that as the rest of that story, when I came back to the Father, what does the book say? It says, while he was still yet afar off, the Father went to meet him. So that's what happened to me, and God and my family, kind of took me back into the fold. But I had kind of ruined, or at least put the brakes on what would have been a bigger career. Maybe I'm not going to go into that. Regret is a crippler, so I'm not doing it. It was God's will that all this happened. But the records, the next two albums after the Straight Ahead album didn't sell very well. And the folks at Columbia wanted me to, record other people's songs. So they brought me a couple of things, took me went down to the Muscle Shoals with Rick Hall. And we made a great album, very proud of it, and had some good songs. And we recorded two of them. I think one of them was Not Tonight, I've Got a Heartache or something. I don't know. I've chosen not to remember. Here's what happened. When I first moved to Nashville, Mickey said, record your own songs. He said, I know your heart. He said, you do not have enough great songs now for an album. He said, in a year, you will. And I'm looking over at the Pilgrim album on the wall. Johnny Cash, Big John, JR, wrote the album notes where he said, and now comes along this Pilgrim. And his heart's for sale and the price is mighty cheap. You can have it for, nothing. He'll give it to you. All these wonderful things. And Mickey said, if you have a hit on somebody else's song, said it's going to break your heart to have to sing it. It's going to break your heart for 3 minutes for the rest of your life. When you have to sing it, don't do it. Do your song. And that's just kind of how we built it. It wasn't, we weren't just looking for songs. We were looking for a career and a legacy, and to whatever, to whatever degree we've achieved that, I'm very grateful to God. A couple of years ago, and was elected into the Songwriters Hall of Fame, Nashville Song. And I tell people, I would not be in that Hall of Fame if it weren't for the fact every time I sit down with this pencil in front of a blank sheet of white paper, unlined white paper, I can hear in my mind's ear, I can hear Brother Steve sing the low part.
All right.
I can hear Brother Rudy in my mind's ear singing the high part. And that's where that comes from. So I wouldn't be in there without them. The nice friends and neighbors, people who've played records and bought them. And I'm just very grateful.
I was always a word person. I was never really a music person. When I grew up, I never went to concert. The first concert I ever went to, I was the opening act for, and I never went to one. And I was in college before I ever bought my first album ever. And your album was the second one I ever bought. I bought the Y'all Come Back Saloon song with the Oaks.
Yep.
And I just, that story got me, that
Yes.
She played tambourine with a silver jingle. Yeah, that story got me. And so, but then, and I never really listened to music on the radio, but somehow I heard a song and I listened to the words and I asked somebody near me, I said, who is that? Who did that? Because my parents were music majors. My dad was a minister of music. My mom was a soloist. And so I was very aware of good music, good voices. And And I remember asking, and somebody said, "Well, that's Larry Gatlin." And I was like, "Where? Like, is that in the record store?" And they said, "Yeah." So I went to the mall and I bought this, and I printed out these words, and obviously the music with your voice, it takes it into space. But these words, I remember kind of obsessing over these words and thinking, how are these put together? And my mom, Larry, my mom had cancer then, and we all knew that she was going to die. And she came to visit me, and I played her this song, and I said, "Listen to this, listen to the words." And then I played it again, and then I played it again, and she loved your voice, and but here's the words. And before I even read them, I have to this day, I am in awe of great words. When I guess I have a love affair with the English language too, because when I see great writing, I'm just like, oh my gosh. So listen to this. What will we do now? You tell me. The hourglass is all out of sand. How could love slip through our fingers and leave nothing but time on our hands? And how will we live now? You tell me. With parts of our hearts torn away. Just existing makes dying look easy. But maybe tomorrow, I've done enough dying today. And that's just the first verse of that song. That's just, oh my gosh. But that was probably the first time that I ever connected. I mean, I had read, I had liked writers, there's certain books, but that was the first time that I'd ever looked at something and went, how did that happen? How did this guy do this? And so to end up having met you, worked with you, and be buddies, I think back on that, and it's just odd. But I still love that song.
Well, thank you again, Mom. We'll see you when we do. I'll take that cap off it. Look, here's. Thank you, Andy. I appreciate that very much. I use that song. It's my favorite song I've ever written.
Really?
It really is. It was not a big hit. Like I say, we released it. It started off slow and tapered off. You know what I mean? But here's what happened. The second thing I tell young people after, if you want to write, read. The second one is, if you want to write, listen. Listen to everything. Listen to good music. Listen to cab drivers. Listen to the wind. Listen to train whistles. Especially listen to yourself. So, and I use this as an example of listen to yourself. I was sitting, I try to pick up this guitar once a day. And if it talks to me and sings to me, fine. If it doesn't, I go play golf or do something else. So it was the first little house that Janice and I had over in Antioch, Tennessee on Coalmont Drive. And I went down to the basement, and I just, and I readily admit, I am no great shakes as a guitar player. I write songs, thank God, well enough to hire a real guitar player, Steve Smith, and the great musicians in Nashville. But I sat there, and I just had this little. And my fingers went up to that chord. I've never played that chord in my life. Well, it's D up 4 frets. So I went, la-da. So I said, Larry, that is beautiful. You've got to write. Oh, that is a beautiful melody. That's beautiful. So I wrote, blah, 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 blah. It was drivel. It was horrible. It was, I love you, you love me. Oh, how happy we can be. Do-da. It was terrible. I worked on it for an hour. So I put the guitar down. I walked up the stairs, walked across the kitchen to go get in bed with my beautiful wife, Janice. It's about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And on the way across the kitchen floor, I said, what will I do now? I've got that beautiful melody. I don't have a lyric. What am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? What will I do? I turned around, walked back down the stairs, went, what will we do now? You tell me. The hourglass is all out of sand. How could love slip through our fingers? How could love slip through our fingers? Love slip through our fingers and leave nothing but time on our hand. So that's pretty good. And how will my guitar's out of tune? How will we live now, you tell me? With our hearts torn. No, not with our hearts. If all of our hearts are torn away, we'd be dead. So how will we live, you tell me? With parts of our hearts torn away. So if we die, if we're almost just existing makes dying look easy. And I went, oh, that's really good. Just existing makes dying look easy. What? But if you die, but I don't want to die. But maybe I'll die. Maybe I can die. Maybe tomorrow. I've done enough dying today. And I knew that I had something. I didn't say, oh boy, Larry, that's a hit. I didn't say that because I don't say that anymore. I've been wrong too many times on that. But I said, that's good. That's good. That's something to work on. So I tried a second verse, and it was blah, 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 blah. It was worse than the first bad blah, blah, blah. So I walked up the steps, walked across the kitchen, go get in bed with my beautiful wife, Janice. It's midnight by now, and I'm saying to myself, I'll never be able to sleep now. I got that melody going through my head in that first verse. How in the world am I ever going? I'll never be able to go to sleep. I turned back around across the kitchen, went downstairs. How will I sleep now? You tell me. With only my arm by my side, perhaps I'll learn sleeping all over. And just maybe, without dreaming this time. And who'll make you laugh now? You tell me. Since you've sent your clown, laughing on his way, I don't think I'll cry, just die laughing. But maybe tomorrow I've done enough dying today. And that's my favorite. And I use that to visit with. And I tell them when I do a master class, I said, I heard a sermon one time. It was a great sermon. The preacher came out and he said, they're called the 10 Commandments, not the 10 Suggestions. Let us pray. Well, when I visit with these kids, I'm going to visit with them and say, they're not the 10 Commandments. They're just 10 suggestions. I'm doing it. These are some things I suggest. If you want to write, read. If you want to write, think. If you want to write, when you think, just say, well, I think, go write that down. Well, I feel like, go write that down. Listen to people. Then if you want to write. If you really want to write, erase, rewrite, and then go get a cheeseburger.
Man, my mother and your mother are holding hands in heaven. And my mother just said to your mother, my son played that song for me when he was in college. Thank you for doing that. Good.
That's a grief. What a sweet picture that is, that your mom and my mom are holding.
Listen, I have an idea that we could probably talk all day, and we can't. You've got stuff to do, and so just promise me that you will do this again, and we'll do a part 2 about something else. But man, thank you for being here. Good grief.
Andy,
Thank
thank
you.
you for the invitation. I mean that. You know how I respect your work. I love to watch. I've loved to read your books. I've read them for years. I love when we were on the deal on the what's that gospel guy had that cruise? What's his name?
Bill Gaither.
Gaylord,
Bill Gaither.
huh?
Bill
Gaylord.
Gaither. Yeah, Bill Gaither.
Bill
Yeah,
Gaylord.
you remember him.
And got to see you. It's a performance. It's performance art. The great sermons I've heard and the great teachers kind of performed the deal. It wasn't just old dry. It was really, really wonderful. And the next time we get together, I think we ought to write a short story or a song or something about. I think our mamas are holding hands in heaven.
Man, you heard it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to hold Larry to this.
Ooh.
Our mamas are holding hands in heaven. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hey, before we go, I got to tell you, you and Stephen Rudy are the subject of the greatest baseball trivia question that I can ask people. And here's how I ask it. I say, who sang the national anthem at the World Series that when the national anthem was over, it was so good that they waited 10 days to play the game?
It was earth-shattering, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. I was watching that game because I knew you guys, and it's like, hey, it's Larry, Rudy, Steve, and they're singing the national anthem, and then you're singing, and all of a sudden I see you're at Candlestick Park in San Francisco, and then the earth starts shaking, and it was the big earthquake.
Yep.
And oh
It
my
was. Well,
gosh.
you've put a little bit of hair on the story, as we say in Texas, but you got some of it right. We actually were about to sing it. It happened at 5:04. We were supposed to sing it at 5:08, so we didn't really sing it that day. But
really?
They did show our faces there when we came back because nobody knew what to do. But we did get to come back 10 days later. I shouldn't have messed up your story, but somebody will go check it out and they'll say, well, he's lying, dog. Their
That's
mothers
right.
ain't holding hands anymore. He's lying down there.
Yeah, that's right. I love these little tricky trivia questions. I am the answer to a tricky trivia question about Las Vegas. And
Yeah,
that is who was the first entertainer to perform on the main stage at the Mirage when it opened? And when I ask that, people go, Wayne Newton, Frank Sinatra. And the answer is me, because Kenny Rogers, I was opening for Kenny, and Kenny, because I was his opening act, Kenny was second. I was the first entertainer to perform on the main stage.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Ha, 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 Kenny.
Hey, buddy, thank you so much for being here. Tell Janice, hey, give her our love, and let's connect soon.
I love you, pal. God bless. Thank you for letting us be there, be here with you today. And like I say, let's do it again.
All right,
Now
buddy.
that I know
Bye-bye.
how to turn all this rigmarole on, it's easy.
I'm Andy Andrews, the professional noticer, harnessing common sense and wisdom to plow through challenges all the way to an answer for you. And I think that'll do it for this week. Get us out of here, Matthew. So, ladies and gentlemen, and to the boys and girls who aspire to become ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of another episode of The Professional Noticer. In a world where common sense has become a superpower, I'm harnessing that tiny bit of mental energy I have for you, seeking wisdom, making observations, and endeavoring to answer tough questions in a way that will empower your family and your business. I'm Andy Andrews. Until next week, goodbye. This episode of The Professional Noticer was produced by Matt Limpert. The Noticer theme written and performed by Sugarcane Jane. Tight harmonies for the cast and crew provided by Twinkle and Smoke of Beverly Hills. Additional funding provided by musicalancestry.com. Do you only move your lips when everyone's singing in church? Do people scrunch up their faces when you begin Happy Birthday? You, my friend, need some generational encouragement. Let musicalancestry.com come to the rescue. Can't carry a tune in a bucket? Perhaps your relatives can bring you the admiration you so desire. Let us explore your past for pockets of perfect pitch. Cynthia Whetstone once wrote us to say, I used to sing when I had problems until I realized my voice is so much worse than my problems. Can anyone in my family sing? Help me, please. And of course we did. It gave Cynthia great comfort to know that her great-great-great-grandmother, who came over on the Mayflower, once sang alto in the original Pilgrim production of Arrows for Thanksgiving. We were also able to find evidence of Cynthia's grandnephew, Chuck, who, from her father's side, with his wife Bernice, had 11 children. The youngest daughter, Agnes, grew up to marry an itinerant Dutch preacher whose last name was Welk. Together, they had a son, Larry, who grew up to conduct an orchestra on Saturday nights. Let us find the pockets of perfect pitch in your past. We are musicalancestry.com.